Alright guys, before I start this video, I just wanted to tell everyone that I'm going to be grinding casts like crazy. Where I live, it's pretty hard for me to cast MDL or those big tournaments, so I'm not sure how much of the big games I'm going to be casting, but I'm going to be casting on my stream at least twice a day. If there's no tournaments going on, I'm going to be casting, or TZ or Universe, whoever's playing. If you care about that, if you want to see how I cast, make sure to follow me on Twitch. And that's it guys, let's get to the game. Hey guys, Bowie here, and this is things I've learned with Gorc's Spectre in 7.15. As Gorc approaches the room, Dire plays quite aggressively, as it's expected from the team playing against the Spectre, and Sand King commits a pretty big mistake that Gorc makes use of instantly. Burrow Strike has 11 seconds cooldown, and he goes for the Rubik here at 9 seconds with no follow-up, so considering he has a vision of the other heroes and Tech is already committed to Doku, he can easily get the rune with no fear whatsoever. If we go back, it's awesome how Gorc not only knows he can secure the rune, but he blocks Sand King from advancing further in chasing Rubik, while at the same time getting the rune since he's under Spectre Dagger and is faster than the Lobster. Another great decision is getting the Quelling Blade straight away in the side shop, disregarding the block completely. With his support low in HP and him against a dual lane, the lane will most likely push, so getting the item guarantees CS under tower that otherwise would be very hard to get, not only in tower but also against those two heroes. He has no fear going there since he knows Techies has no mines, and he pretty much focuses in drawing aggro and getting CS at the start. At this point, you can clearly see that Dire already has 2 range creeps, meaning that the lane will indeed push, so Gorc is actually fine. He draws aggro to get CS, and pay attention what he does. With the mana decrease in Spectral Dagger, it's actually okay to use that skill when he gets CS. Not only he gets to CS because of it, but he also hits the Sand King. By drawing aggro before the creep wave comes as well, he's going to take less damage under tower that would be significant even with 6 armor and damage block, especially because Dire can dive him with Burrow Strike and the Suicide. Even though he has no mana regen items and already used the skill twice, has the means to slow Sand King here. Unfortunately though, with Burrow Strike getting back and Gorc low in HP, there's no point in trying to dive there, especially with mines being now online. The way that Gorc uses the dagger is pretty impressive in lane. As Pudge TPs, he uses it as a means to get a range CS, but it also sets up the Q attempt. Unfortunately though, Sand King was kinda fast. The creep wave starts pushing though, and we'll see Gorc using that time to clear some mines, but bear with me. For starters, he takes this one, pretty easy to find. And here we can see why Mango is so good on Spectre. They get a kill, and as he wants to spend his gold in the side shop, Techie's presence and the mine sounds refrain him from doing so. What he does, knowing that the lane is pushing, is commit to it. He doesn't try to draw aggro to the range creep or stop the push by any means. He pushes that huge wave since he knows that both Techies and Sand King are thirsty for that bonus of experience and gold, while he, feeling safe, takes some mines down. He never overcommits before having vision of the mine, so that's pretty important. He just backs as he listens to the sound and takes the trees until he finds it. It did take a while, but this is way more value to him than trying to last hit close to the enemy tower versus the Sand King plus Techie's initiation. He at least gets some gold when normally he would get none, and he gets himself the Aquila as first item. Boots versus those heroes is definitely not the best choice. Usually Boots early allows you to dive and go for kills versus Techie's plus Sand King. The Aquila gives him more damage to get CS. I mean, it's the best item for agility heroes early on, period, so I guess I don't really have to justify this. The no boots thing gets taken to the limit here. Gorc would rather stay his ground versus Techies and Sand King because 1, he doesn't want to dive anyone, and 2, if they commit their mobility spells, he can right click them down, and he is faster than them when he has the dagger, so he pretty much just needs more damage. So he gets some HP regen, which definitely is good versus Sand King with the passive. The way Gorc handles the catapult wave is also beautiful. A low MR player would probably commit to the shrine or base since he's feeling pressure, but Gorc not only gets a couple of CS, he commits the mango for it, drawing aggro and making the tower damage quite negligible. His team was using the courier for a long period of time, the tango that I mentioned was still not delivered to him, and even then he played accordingly, defending his lane and not dying. He gets level 6, and the way he uses his haunt is just beautiful. A lot of players will try to jaunt immediately, but Gorc knows that Burrow Strike would allow Dire to disengage, so he holds on the jaunt as best as possible, and since he avoids the stun, he can go for techies, and while he doesn't get the kill, this type of haunt usage really shows the difference between him and an average Spectre player. The way Gorc plays around the Burrow Strike is pristine. He sees Sand King back in lane, and look how he ignores him, but when the Burrow Strike is committed and techies is far away, he instantly engages to deal more damage. As Ruby gets chased even more, Gorc waits for another Burrow Strike to be able to commit to the shrine without fear. This is not an easy game though, and we'll see him struggling quite a bit, since his laning phase was that tough. This is another beautiful play by Gorc. Dire TPs the Wind Ranger to that lane, but if you go back a little bit, you can see that the Wind Ranger was off the map the entire time. More often than not, you see people maxing the dagger because it's the only reliable damage that Spectre has in the early game, but seeing both Wind Ranger and Techies off the map, and knowing that he is the most important hero this game, which means he's probably going to be ganked, he gets the second point in the passive. What it accomplishes is not only surviving through Dire's gank, since he's tankier, it gives him more damage, reflecting all of that. Against those heroes that close the gap on him and get pretty close, they take more damage from Dispersion. He jukes the arrow nicely, and with phase boots ready and his ult almost online, he walks back to base. Nowadays, a lot of people feel like the stats build is the strongest possible on this hero, since he got some juicy buffs to his illusion haunt damage, and I mean, that's not wrong. That being said, that build suffers heavily farming wise, especially if you cannot get any kills early on, especially if you had a hard laning phase. Not only every core on the Dire team has an escape mechanism, they're also ahead in farm. In those scenarios, specifically versus heroes that can't control their damage like Wind Ranger, Slark, and Sand King, Blade Mail is a lot of value. It's harder for Slark to actually solo kill the Spectre, it gives you more mana and damage, and it allows you to deal damage in fights even if you're being kited. This is the fight that starts jeopardizing Gorc's game. They felt like they were baiting Sand King here, but they were mistaken. On top of that, Gorc tries to ult to get out of there, but he dies instantly, and with the nerf to haunt cooldown, he gets completely nullified for 3 minutes. Another huge weakness of Spectre is that before your level 10 talent, farming jungle is incredibly underwhelming. Not only you're risking tower damage, but you're also doing it super slowly anyways. Some heroes like Anti-Mage, Sven, and Slark farm so fast that sometimes losing map control for the boost of gold is fine. That's not Spectre though, and because of that, he keeps on TPing on the same tower in hopes of completing his item, defending the tower, and getting to level 10. I like that he daggers here to be off the map as quickly as possible, but the game starts getting harder and harder for him. That being said though, look how Gorc plays after that. A lot of players would either get a self or walk to the jungle and hide. Gorc though knows that Techies was somewhere else and there's no mines here. On top of that, Slark and Techies are dead, while he has vision of other heroes in the map, so even though he's weak and very low HP, he pushes this wave by committing the dagger ASAP. Obviously, this will lure people in. Sand King shows up almost immediately, and that's Gorc's cue to get back to jungle. He's still not level 10 though, so look how he goes for the small camp stack, but even more importantly, how he farms it on a super safe spot while also not blocking the next spawn. He also timed all of this with the shrine getting back online, so while an average player would lose maybe an entire minute going back to base and not having TP when he gets there, Gorc farms 2 waves, jungle stack, regions, and is ready to keep on playing those. Just keep watching. He knows that Wind Ranger is there, but he also knows how importantly this tower is for his game, so he keeps on using dagger like that to defend it, while also setting up for his team if they want to fight. By playing like that, they participate in a bunch of fights, he gets level 10, and is almost Blade Mail ready. Speaking of blade mail, not only the item is great versus Slark, a pretty good counter versus Spectre, there's one thing that you can use besides that item to deal with Slark. Usually it's almost impossible to juke a Slark by food just because when he has no vision of you, he's mega fast, so he's going to find you eventually. The thing about Spectral Dagger though is that it doesn't get dispelled by Dark Pact. In fact, I guess it doesn't get dispelled by anything, which means that you can escape him if you play correctly. Instead of trying to TP away, which would be quite the Monkai-esque play, he uses the skill and runs towards the trees. By cutting a good tree and knowing exactly where Slark is, he can choose the best time to TP away and he survives. Not only that, he has ult ready, so that's a great time to go since Shadow Dance is on cooldown. Unfortunately though, his team was not well positioned, and while he only saw Bane there, ulting now would be playing on Dire's hands since no one is showing. So nicely played by Gorc. Gorc just keeps on going for top tier plays. As he pushes bottom and has ult ready, he clicks on Slark, noticing that he has no TP. With the strongest hero on Dire being there, he instantly forces a fight mid. While he misses the Spectral Dagger for no reason, the Blade Mail and his global presence allows him to get 4 kills. With vision from Slark mid, he doesn't feel afraid of defending his tier 2, and he keeps on scaling and farming. This is one of his first mistakes, or maybe a slight confusion. You can see Slark TPing because of the ward, so when Zeus ults there's no Slark showing because the true sight was probably in the fountain, and because there's already vision there, and that makes Gorc believe that only Wind Ranger is going after him, and he falls. The Blade Mail proves to be pretty good, but not when Slark is ahead of you like that. After that, Gorc starts falling countless times, and a big part of that is Spectre being such a slow hero. At this stage, it's almost impossible to get kills without Haunt, and since the cooldown is so big, Dire is going aggressive and he has no answer. That being said, since all the pressure is being applied on Gorc and he is itemizing correctly and dealing with it, his Zeus and Pangolier are quite strong, and they hold the ropes while Gorc decides to get a Raven. We're going to talk two things now: why I think he doesn't go earn, and I feel like some people still have that question, and why no Diffusal, Yasha, or any stats items whatsoever. He's already pretty far behind in farm, and in a long game, he won't be able to get enough items to go toe-to-toe against Slark if he gets stat sight. Radiance allows him to ramp up in farm. It's amazing versus Sand King. There's a lot of value versus Slark and Wind Ranger because of the mischance. The stat item build is awesome, but when you're playing from ahead, meaning that you can always ult, you get kills, and then you farm with no fear because you actually have map control. While Radiance is risky, I feel like it was the right choice this game. Regarding Earn, not only the item doesn't give HP anymore, which was one of the great reasons it synergized with the hero, you already have Mana Regen and Aquila, you already have Distant Armor, Slark can dispel the skill, and Earn is that type of item where you want to dive people, just chase people to the ends of the earth and get as many kills as possible and thus as many charges as possible. That's not as easy versus techies, and as I talked about, the cooldown on Haunt being bigger, it's harder to get charges and thus make use of the charges as you farm and as you go for more kills. Whereas the Blade Mail is useful way more often than not, especially when you're behind. After a while, when Gorc has ult again, we see his team being baiting Dire beautifully. They show the Spectre, the juicy and tanky hero, while everyone is hiding there. A lot of smokes and wards get committed. Until Gorc decides to ult, and pay attention how he plays it. Sand King is the weakest of the cores, but jaunting on him is asking to be Burrow Stroke, and they'll probably be able to disengage. So he wastes the cooldown. Since Sand King doesn't go for it and he gets away of the Wind Ranger, he goes for her. While she dodges your attacks, Desolate cannot be missed, and since she's by herself, that's an easy kill for them. The game eventually turns around, and this fight is probably the most important one at that. We're going to talk a lot about how he uses late game Haunt. He ults here, and pay attention how instead of chasing the Wind Ranger that he has no vision of, he goes for techies first, and then jaunts once more when he can see her. Just beautiful. He lingers around, and while he falls for the Slark, they get the Aegis out on Dire's side of the map, which is pretty bad for Dire, while also forcing some buybacks. He always uses the jaunt the best way possible in my opinion. In this fight here, seeing the stun ally, he knows that Burrow Strike is on cooldown. Then he haunts to the other illusion to waste the cast point on Bane while also getting there faster and eventually survive. If we go back, that fight has even more layers to it. To a lot of people, Spectre being a global hero is a strength, and that's true, but the true strength of this hero is not helping your team fight 5 versus 5, but abuse the global power to get 4 versus 5s or 3 versus 5s. Slark has a nullifier and Silver Edge, so know what happens. Instead of farming jungle or waiting in the base to get the best out possible, he shows bottom. That's a double damage Slark, by the way, and obviously what happens is that he immediately TPs to go on hand. Gorc doesn't know exactly where Slark is, but that's a fucking fast hero. And not only that, since Dire sees him, they go on Pango, ultimately turning a fight that Dire never thought they could lose, since 2 heroes were dead for Radiant, in a convincing win where Slark has no means to react. He obviously keeps on fighting here since Slark is showing bottom, after all, he has nowhere else to go, and that was just beautiful, and they end up winning the game eventually. Well guys, this is our episode for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. That's the only way for me to know if you care about, you know, those streamers. I don't usually feature a lot of streamers, but Gorc is an amazing player. I really like his stream, so there you go. As of always guys, and now I'm actually serious, I'm going to cast every single day. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to play. I'm trying to get some gigs and I'm gonna practice as much as possible. So if you care about your boy, follow me on Twitch. If you want some spoilers of what's going on in my life, what's the next video, Instagram is the way to go. And if you want to talk with people that care about Dota, or you're a crispy boy, or Discord channel is the way to go. Thanks everyone for watching. It was a pleasure, and you can keep watching the game with the replay ID or some crispy music. Thanks everyone, bye.
Setting tension. Looping tension.
Fade out, many moments out of